Marley had always been the shadow in Valeria's spotlight, the one who anticipated every need before it was voiced, the coffee black with a twist of lemon, the itinerary rerouted around that once stubborn traffic snarl on the way to the Alhambra. 10 years of mornings in Madrid's crisp autumn air, where Marley would bundle Valeria into taxis for early meetings with gallery owners, her laughter a quiet anchor amid the chaos of launching what would become one of Spain's most celebrated contemporary art collectives. They were an unlikely duo, Valeria, the fiery Catalan visionary in her early 40s now, with her raven hair and eyes like polished obsidian, who painted canvases that bled emotion, raw strokes of crimson and indigo capturing the ache of exile and desire. And Marley, the steady American expat from Seattle's drizzly embrace, 35 and unassuming, with auburn curls that frizzed in the Andalusian humidity and a smile that hid the poetry she scribbled in margins of forgotten notebooks. It started innocently enough, that first September in 2015, when Marley, fresh out of a botched MFA program and nursing a breakup that left her adrift, answered a cryptic ad in the back of El País, assistant needed for rising artist. Must thrive in chaos. No drama queens. She'd flown into Barajas on a whim, her duffel bag stuffed with dog-eared copies of Auden and a resume that screamed, overqualified underachiever. Valeria interviewed her in a sun-drenched café off the Gran Via, sketching idly on a napkin while grilling Marley about her thesis on queer invisibility in modernist literature. Why Spain? Valeria had asked, her accent a melodic lilt that wrapped around the vowels like smoke. Marley, heart pounding under her thrift store blazer, had shrugged. To find something real. Something that doesn't fade like Pacific Northwest fog. By week's end, Marley was ensconced in Valeria's cramped apartment in Malesana, a riot of half-finished oils and takeout containers, fielding calls from eccentric collectors and charming suppliers for turpentine that arrived late. The pay was modest, the hours endless, but there was magic in it, the way Valeria's brow furrowed over a canvas at 3 a.m., muttering Catalan curses under her breath, or how she'd collapse onto the worn leather couch afterward, head lolling back, inviting Marley to perch on the armrest and recount tales of rainy Seattle hikes. Marley became the keeper of secrets, the gallery deal that nearly tanked because of a rival's sabotage, the late-night confessions over Rioja about Valeria's estranged mother in Barcelona, the quiet pride when her first solo show sold out in a blur of flashbulbs and champagne flutes. Love crept in like the jasmine vines overtaking the balcony railing, subtle, insistent, blooming in stolen glances. Marley memorized the curve of Valeria's neck when she laughed at a bad pun, the way her fingers, stained with cerulean, would brush Marley's wrist while passing a sketchpad. She'd lie awake in the tiny guest room, the city's hum filtering through the shutters, composing mental sonnets she never dared voice. "You're her right hand," friends back home would say in grainy video calls, but Marley knew it was more. She was the unseen architect, propping up Valeria's dreams while burying her own under layers of loyalty. Poetry submissions gathered dust, her novel, a half-formed thing about a woman loving from afar, stalled at chapter 3. What use was fiction when reality was this intoxicating ache? Years blurred into a rhythm as familiar as the Guadalquivir's lazy bend. They decamped to Seville in 2018 for a residency at the Reals Alcazars, where Valeria's series on fractured identities, portraits of women gazing into shattered mirrors, earned her a spot in the Venice Biennale. Marley orchestrated it all, visas wrangled from bureaucratic mazes, crates of canvases shipped without a single dent, even the midnight run to the pharmacy when Valeria's allergies flared under the orange blossoms. In the cool cloisters, amid Moorish arches etched with starbursts, Marley watched Valeria transform, vulnerable one moment, ferocious the next. "You see me," Valeria said once, after a grueling critique session, her voice thick with unshed tears as she leaned against Marley's shoulder. "Not the myth. The mess." Marley's heart stuttered, but she only nodded, murmuring, "That's what assistants do." The first crack appeared in Granada, 2 years later, during the pandemic's long shadow. Borders sealed, shows cancelled, they hunkered in a borrowed finca on the Alhambra's outskirts, the air heavy with olive groves and isolation. Valeria, stripped of her audience, turned inward, her paints gathering dust as doubt clawed at her. Marley cooked paella from canned goods, read aloud from Lorca until her voice cracked, held space for the silences that stretched like the Sierra Nevada's spine. One evening, as thunder rumbled over the Vega, Valeria confessed over flickering candlelight, "I met someone. Before all this. A curator in Lisbon. Elena." The name landed like a stone in still water. Marley forced a smile, her chest tightening. "Tell me about her." But inside, the jasmine wilted, 10 years of quiet devotion, and here was the truth: she was the scaffold, not the canvas. Elena was a whirlwind, 40s, Portuguese elegance with a laugh like breaking waves, jet-black curls and a mind sharp as espumante. She swept into their orbit via Zoom calls that bled into late-night texts, promising collaborations, escapes. Valeria bloomed under it, her sketches regaining their fire, but Marley faded into the background, the one tuning the laptop, pouring the wine. Jealousy wasn't a storm, it was a slow erosion, carving canyons in Marley's resolve. She'd slip out to the finca's terrace, staring at the moonlit Alhambra, whispering to the night, "Let her go. You're the ghost here." Yet she stayed, because leaving meant unraveling the only world that felt like home. By 2023, with the world reopening like a hesitant flower, Elena materialized, flesh and blood, arriving in Seville for business. The apartment in Triana buzzed with her energy, shared meals of gazpacho and anecdotes from Lisbon galleries, laughter that echoed off the whitewashed walls. Marley played the gracious host, her auburn curls pinned back, smiles plastered like frescoes. But at night, alone in her room, she traced the scars of unspoken words, wondering if Valeria ever noticed the way her gaze lingered, the hesitation in her touch. The betrayal wasn't Elena's, it was Valeria's obliviousness, the way she leaned into Marley's steadiness without seeing the woman beneath. The storm broke on a humid July evening in 2025, the kind where Seville's heat clings like a lover's regret. They'd just wrapped a retrospective at the Museo de Bellas Artes, Valeria's triumph, a decade's work distilled into luminous halls. Champagne flowed, critics buzzed, Elena hovered like a shadow with teeth. Marley, in a simple sundress that hid her trembling hands, excused herself early, fleeing to the rooftop overlooking the Guadalquivir. The city sprawled below, a tapestry of golden lights and riverine curves, but all she saw was the ache of it all. Valeria found her there, the door creaking open behind a veil of rain that had just begun to fall. "Marley. You vanished." Her voice was soft, laced with concern, emerald dress rumpled from the crowd. Marley turned, rain streaking her face, tears or sky water, it didn't matter. "I can't do this anymore," she said, the words tumbling out like freed birds. 10 years, Val. Fetching your dry cleaning, holding your hair back during breakdowns, loving you from the footnotes of your life. And you? You build empires on my silence. Valeria froze, obsidian eyes widening. "What are you?" "I love you." The confession hung, electric as the thunder rolling in from the Atlantic. Marley's hands fisted at her sides, curls plastered to her neck. "Not as your assistant. Not as your friend. As the woman who's memorized every scar on your soul. And tonight, watching you with her. It shattered me." The rain intensified, drumming on the terracotta like an impatient heart. Valeria stepped forward, then back, her face a map of dawning realization, shock, guilt, something deeper flickering like bioluminescence. "Marley, Elena's safe. Predictable. But you're the constant I never questioned." Her voice cracked, hand reaching out, brushing Marley's rain-slicked arm. The touch ignited it, Marley closed the gap, cupping Valeria's face, pulling her into a kiss that tasted of salt and storm and a decade's deferred longing. It was tentative at first, lips brushing like whispers, then fierce, Valeria's fingers tangling in Marley's curls, a gasp escaping as the world narrowed to this rooftop, this moment. They broke apart, breathless, foreheads pressed together as lightning forked the Sierra. "What now?" Valeria murmured, her thumb tracing Marley's jaw, eyes searching. Marley laughed, a broken sound swallowed by the downpour. "Now. We figure it out. Or we don't. But no more silence." The kiss lingered in the air like the scent of wet earth and impending dawn, but reality crashed in with the morning light filtering through the shutters of Valeria's Triana apartment. Marley woke tangled in sheets that smelled of lavender soap and regret, Valeria's arm draped possessively across her waist, a warmth she dreamed of but never dared claim. For a heartbeat, it felt like victory, the artist and her muse, boundaries blurred under the weight of truth. But as Valeria stirred, murmuring Portuguese endearments meant for another, Marley slipped free, padding to the kitchen in borrowed silk, the tile cold against her bare feet. Coffee brewed, black and bitter, the ritual that had anchored their mornings for a decade. Marley leaned against the counter, staring at the Guadalquivir's lazy flow through the open window, fishing boats bobbing like forgotten promises. Valeria appeared, hair tousled, robe slipping off one shoulder, her eyes carrying the vulnerability of last night's storm. "Buenos dias," she said softly, crossing the room to press a kiss to Marley's temple, chaste, tentative, but laced with possibility. They ate in companionable quiet, pan con tomate, the bread's crust crunching under knives, olive oil glistening like unshed tears. Words hovered, unspoken. What of Elena? What of the life built on professional lines? The day unfolded in a haze of normalcy laced with electricity. Marley fielded emails from the museum, praise for the retrospective, inquiries for prints, while Valeria sketched in the sun-dappled studio, her strokes bolder, infused with a new urgency. Stolen glances across the room built a bridge, Marley's freckled hand brushing Valeria's as she handed over a charcoal pencil, the artist's fingers lingering, tracing the lifeline on Marley's palm. By afternoon, they wandered the Feria de Abril's echoes in the barrio, though the festival had long passed, empty stalls strung with faded lights, the air thick with memories of polka-dot dresses and sevillanas danced till dawn. Valeria bought Marley a Manton de Manila shawl, crimson silk embroidered with peonies, draping it over her shoulders with a whisper, "It matches the fire in you." That night, Elena called. The phone buzzed on the nightstand like a hornet, shattering the fragile bubble. Valeria hesitated, screen glowing with Lisbon's area code, before answering on speaker. Transparency, she called it, but Marley heard the edge. "Karina," Elena's voice purred, waves of the Tagus in the background, "the proposal for the joint exhibit, it's gold. When can we meet in person?" Silence stretched, Valeria's gaze locking with Marley's across the rumpled bed. "Elena," she said finally, voice steady as the Guadalquivir in flood, "things have changed. I need to be honest. There's someone else. Has been, I think, for longer than I knew." The line went dead, a click like a door slamming in an empty gallery. Valeria tossed the phone aside, collapsing beside Marley, her laugh half hysterical. "She called me cold. Said I was always half gone." Marley pulled her close, the shawl tangling between them, murmuring, "You were building something real. With me." They kissed again, slower this time, mapping territories long charted in secret, Valeria's collarbone, Marley's earlobe, breaths mingling like colors on a palette. It was exploration, not conquest, hands discovering curves with the reverence of rediscovering a favorite book, whispers of "I've always wondered" punctuating the quiet. But dawn brought the backlash. Elena didn't rage quietly, she orchestrated. By noon, whispers rippled through Seville's art scene, anonymous tips to critics about Valeria's unprofessional entanglements, leaked emails twisting Marley's loyalty into something sordid. A scathing review hit the feeds, Valeria Torres's latest show dazzles, but shadows of personal drama eclipsed the light. Who pulls the strings in her atelier? Marley scrolled in the cafe down the street, heart sinking like a stone in the Triana Market's fountain. Betrayal's sting was sharper than she'd imagined, not just from Elena's spite, but from the fragility it exposed. Valeria, ever the phoenix, threw herself into work, but Marley saw the cracks, the way her hands shook mixing pigments, the late-night pacing that echoed Marley's own ghosts. They confronted it over dinner at a taberna tucked in the Macarena, where flamenco guitars wailed from shadowed corners and sangria flowed ruby-red. "This could ruin you," Marley said, pushing away her plate of espinacas con garbanzos, the spinach's earthiness turning to ash in her mouth. Valeria reached across the scarred wooden table, her olive-skinned hand enveloping Marley's. "Us, you mean?" But I've built nothing without you. If it burns, we rebuild. The words were a vow, but doubt gnawed, Marley's American pragmatism clashing with Valeria's Catalan fatalism. What if the fire consumed them both? The conflict escalated in Barcelona, a week later, for an emergency board meeting at the Fundació Joan Miró. The city was an assault of gaudy whimsy, parabolic arches and mosaic dragons, but the air crackled with tension. Elena had allies here, curators who'd championed her Lisbon vision, and they circled like gulls over chum. In the Miró's sunlit atrium, amid undulating sculptures that mocked gravity, Valeria faced the Inquisition, questions veiled as concern, glances sliding to Marley like she was an exhibit labeled influence. Your assistant's role seems intimate, one silver-haired trustee probed, sipping cava with the precision of a scalpel. Valeria's laugh was a blade. Marley's my partner in every sense. If that's a problem, perhaps your vision needs expanding. Marley, stationed by the windows overlooking the port's container ships, felt the room's eyes like spotlights. Humiliation burned, but pride swelled, Valeria claiming her, publicly, fiercely. Yet as they escaped to the Gothic quarter's narrow alleys, rain-slicked and echoing with buskers' accordions, the weight settled. I can't be your secret weapon anymore, Marley confessed, stopping under a medieval archway, gargoyles leering from above. Or your public shield. I need to be seen, as me. Valeria pulled her into a shadowed doorway, kissing her with the desperation of someone staring down an abyss. Then let's burn the rolls. Start fresh. Back in Seville, the storm gathered force. Elena's final strike landed like a thunderclap, a lawsuit, alleging intellectual theft, sketches Valeria had shared in confidence, now twisted into claims of collaborative fraud. The apartment became a war room, lawyers on speed dial, canvases shrouded like ghosts. Marley pored over documents till her eyes blurred, but the real toll was emotional, Valeria retreating into silence, her obsidian eyes dulled, sketches reduced to frantic scrawls. One night, as thunder rattled the azulejos, Marley found her curled on the studio floor, surrounded by torn paper. I'm poison, Valeria whispered, voice muffled against her knees. Everything I touch fractures. Marley knelt, gathering the fragments like sacred relics, her own tears salting the mess. Not us. We're the unbroken line. She pulled Valeria up, leading her to the balcony where jasmine still bloomed defiant against the gale. They stood entwined, rain lashing their faces, and Marley spoke the poetry she'd hoarded, lines about loving in the margins, about shadows that birth light. Valeria listened, then kissed her, deep, anchoring, a promise forged in the deluge. The lawsuit dragged into autumn, Seville's leaves turning to fire along the riverbanks, mirroring the blaze in Marley's resolve. Mornings blurred into strategy sessions with a wiry avocat from Madrid, his office reeking of cigar smoke and old law tomes, while afternoons were stolen sanctuaries, walks through the Alcazar's gardens, where fountains whispered secrets to myrtle hedges, and evenings of tentative domesticity, Valeria chopping onions for Fabeda, Marley setting the table with mismatched china from flea markets. Love, in its raw form, was mundane miracles, the way Valeria's laugh bubbled over a botched soufflé, or how Marley's fingers found the small of her back in crowded markets, a touch that grounded them both. Yet the betrayal festered, Elena's shadow lengthening with each deposition. Whispers followed them, gossip in Triana's patios, sidelong stares at openings where once they'd been toasted. Marley's phone buzzed with messages from old Seattle friends, heard you're the scandal du jour spill. She deleted them, but isolation crept in, a chill wind off the Atlantic. One crisp November evening, as they strolled the Plaza de España's bridges, azulejo tiles gleaming under lanterns like a tiled dream, Valeria stopped, her breath fogging the air. I never saw you. Not really. 10 years, and I was blind. Marley squeezed her hand, calluses from brushes rough against her palm. We both were. But seeing now. That's the art. The high tide came in December, during a pre-trial hearing in a stuffy Granada courthouse, the Sierra Nevada dusted with first snow beyond frosted windows. Elena appeared, poised in pearl gray, her curls tamed into a chignon that screamed calculated poise. She avoided their eyes, but her lawyer's barbs landed like snowballs. Ms. Torres's reliance on her assistant borders on dependency, art born of undue influence. Valeria, in a tailored black suit that echoed her painting's drama, rose like a storm front. Dependency. Try symbiosis. Marley isn't my crutch, she's my clarity. The room hushed, judges gavel a punctuation, but Marley, in the gallery, felt the words as a lifeline, public, irrevocable. Post-hearing, they fled to the Albayacin's whitewashed alleys, where tea houses steamed with mint and cardamom, and viewpoints framed the Alhambra like a postcard from another era. Over her Herrera in a hidden Zocalo, Valeria unfolded her truth. Elena knew about you. From the start. I told her once, half drunk on Moscatel, that you were irreplaceable. She laughed it off, called it artistic fancy. But it ate at her. Marley stirred her soup, steam curling like questions. And you? Did it ever cross your mind? Valeria's gaze dropped, then lifted, raw. Every day. But fear's a hell of a censor. What if I lost my anchor? Winter deepened, the lawsuit a specter haunting their idol. Marley, restless, dusted off her novel, pages yellowed but alive, the story of a silent lover mirroring their own. She read drafts aloud by the fireplace, flames dancing on tiled hearths, and Valeria listened, head on her lap, fingers weaving through auburn curls. Publish it, Valeria urged one night, snow flurrying past the window like errant thoughts. Let the world see what I almost missed. Encouragement bloomed into collaboration, Valeria illustrating chapters with ethereal inks, women in veils of longing, their forms echoing Miro's whimsy but grounded in flesh and blood ache. Betrayal's climax erupted in February, at the Biennale's precursor gala in Venice, canals slick with fog, palazzos aglow like Venetian glass. Elena crashed it, champagne flute in hand, her smile a veneer over venom. Cornering them in a salon hung with Titian's nudes, she hissed, "You think this changes anything? She's mine in the history books, our ideas, our fire." Valeria, gown of midnight silk swirling, stepped forward, voice a low thunder. "History's written by survivors, Elena. And you? You're the footnote." Marley, at her side in emerald velvet matching the memory of that rainy dress, added quietly, "Let it go. Love isn't a canvas to claim." The confrontation spilled into the night, gondola slicing fog as Elena's accusations echoed off water-lapped stone. But dawn brought resolution. Elena's case crumbled under forensic review, sketches time-stamped, influences mutual, not stolen. She withdrew, a ghost fading into Lisbon's mists, leaving only echoes. Back in Seville, spring unfurled, orange blossoms perfuming the air, Azor festivals turning streets to poetry. Valeria's next show, Anchors Unseen, debuted to acclaim, canvases of intertwined forms, shadows birthing light, Marley's words etched in the catalogues forward. Yet the true drama unfolded in quiet aftermath. Marley, manuscript in hand, faced her own precipice, an offer from a New York publisher, a ticket back to Seattle's rain. "Go if you need to," Valeria said one twilight on the riverbank, Triana's lights winking across the water. "But know this, you're not my assistant anymore. You're my horizon." Marley hesitated, the novel's weight in her bag a talisman. 10 years of silence had taught her the cost of invisibility, now, visibility demanded choice. She chose them. In a sunlit notary's office, amid stacks of parchment smelling of wax and history, they signed partnership papers, not just for the studio, but for life. No grand gestures, just vows exchanged over café con leche, to see, to hold, to create without cages. Marley's book launched that summer, a quiet bestseller in indie shops from Madrid to Brooklyn, its dedication simple, to V, who taught me to speak. Years later, in a finca overlooking Ronda's Gorge, windswept cliffs where eagles wheeled, they'd reflect on that rainy kiss, the decade that led to it. Marley, silver threading her curls, would tease, "You owe me back pay for emotional labor." Valeria, laugh lines etching her obsidian eyes, would pull her close, paid in full, amour. Every day since. Their love, human and flawed, a testament, that even in betrayal's forge, tenderness endures, not as drama's end, but as life's quiet masterpiece. In the end, it wasn't happily ever after, but holy, messy, profound, a bridge from silence to song. And in Seville's eternal spring, they walked hand in hand, anchors no longer unseen.